What if you started at a later point in Chimps, but having more money as if you had that amount of money to begin with on that round? So today we're going to be doing this with just the signal flare and the massive behemoth of the Flying Fortress. Even though Moon Landing is an intermediate map, it is an incredibly versatile map for a Mortar Monkey because of the fact that each of these craters essentially enables the mortar to do a huge amount of damage because of the amount of balloons that can be within a crater at any given point in time. I'm not too sure whether or not to do my base mortar 2 megapods in a video or in a live stream. Live stream does have its own benefits, but I'm just thinking about the stream quality because I don't have a lot of faith in a consistent stream quality with my current internet package, so which is why I'm still thinking of doing it as a video, but as a long video. When I started playing Balloons Tower Defense in general, one of the towers that I really avoided using is anything that requires a lot of microing around. And I still hate the ace microing mechanics in general, where you have to keep pressing tab at certain times in order to make the maximum use of its flight patterns. But there is definitely an art to it, which I'm going to say right now is satisfying to watch, but I would never like to try and master it on my own leisures, just because I don't feel particularly satisfied when trying to do ace microing as something that I would want to pursue it. It's not something that I find a lot of fun in. For example, trying to do expert level maps on chimps is something that I don't feel like I could ever pursue, really. Even though you could say, well, if you look at the index and you see my name pop up a bunch of times when it comes to Shell Shock 2 megapops or Heavy Shells 2 megapops, thinking surely you can do expert level maps if you can do 2 megapops with a tier 3 mortar. I think it takes certain angles of skill to try and do certain things, so which is where that kind of obscurity comes into play there, because it's a particular angle of knowledge within a game rather than a general sense of knowledge, but at the same time it's still very specific knowledge because of the fact that you need to understand so many mechanics within a chimps game in order to go through it without dying once. We're going for rapid reload because the main purpose of our mortar here is just to decamify, because we're going to go with the increased rate of fire and more darts path with the AC, just simply because I don't want to actually contest with the lack of rate of fire from the middle path, which is what's normally used for the 2 tower chimps run, just because you want to be able to actually detect and pop camera balloons, and not all partnering towers for Flying Fortress will have some form of removing the camo from the balloon itself. We do have never miss targeting, which will mean that round 40 is definitely going to be easier. With both the more darts and a higher rate of fire, it means that we'll definitely have more chance of taking out the Moab with just the never miss targeting and signal flare, because we have lots more darts rather than spy plane and the exploding pineapples. We are 1/10 of a way throughout our channel's progression to showcasing a yellow balloon death montage, which is definitely going to take a lot of digging throughout the channel's history and all the videos I've done in order to scrape together every single yellow death I've ever encountered. So that's going to be a lot of fun to put together. So many clips over the years. What makes signal flare worse for 2 megapops in comparison to base mortar is that you have to sacrifice either one or two things which makes your run just that little bit easier. Number one, a higher amount of damage and blast radius for the top cross path, and then with the middle cross path you are then sacrificing the additional fire rate in which you get with that otherwise, whereas with just the bottom cross path you're removing the camo, yes, but in some cases you kind of want to have that camo property intact, and you would have yourself a submarine anyways in order to remove the camo. So that option, just you would rather just stick to not having signal flare to begin with, but you would still get the bottom cross path upgrade, just so that you were able to then be able to get yourself a signal flare. Because if you get balloon buster and rapid reload, that means if you're going to put together a index entry, you wouldn't be able to get signal flare because you have tied yourself to those two crossbars anyways. Round 49 could be very challenging because of the amount of ceramics on the field, just the amount of piers that you have on the field, so you have to go between each of the craters in order to try and get the maximum amount of it anyways. Oh my gosh, that's really annoying. You need to have it so the plane targets all the black balloons that spawn out, and that should... No, again with that. Thanks. You just give me one additional clip in the future. Come on, one of these days you gotta do it. There's still more black balloons in there, aren't there? Oh, that's good, that's good, that's good. That's the worst about rounds done and dusted. It's mainly round 49 that's probably the main issue of this entire run. After that, it's just a matter of getting or pressing that Flying Fortress button fast enough when we have the money for it. We're going to keep a cursor over here just because we'll be able to get the money for the Spectre Venom there. And we're going to move you... we're going to move you up here so that the plane is always kind of facing towards one of these two craters. And I prefer you to be on clockwise rather than counterclockwise. Obviously, this is not an official 2-tower chimps run because we are starting with more money than usual, and we're starting on a later round rather than round 6. But if you were to progress to round 7 and the total amount of money that you would have at that point, it would be 813. And your mortar starts with 810. So there we go. I think our next challenging round is going to be round 78, and that's just because of the camo ceramics. Not the regular ones, but the camo ones. And that's just because this thing has a D-camo pierce, or just the main attack itself. Obviously, it has a pierce cap, so therefore you'd have to have multiple shots fly down to the field in order to decamify all of the ceramics on that round. But we will be able to do round 95 without changing the positioning of our cursor. Then again, watch me eat my words and have to micro between the 3 craters on this moon. Or on the moon side, because the Earth only has one moon. And hey, guess what? Our moon in the sky is the largest satellite that orbits the planet. When some people think of satellites, so they think of like man-made satellites rather than any kind of object that orbits the Earth. So a natural satellite is something that is non-man-made and is obviously something that can orbit around the planet. So anything that can orbit around the planet while having its own kind of mass sustained and not being pulled towards the Earth and therefore being crushed by the Earth's gravity, like our own moon for example, is something that obviously orbits around our planet. It helps our tides be well, not completely unstable. This quote being a reference towards the magnetron in Red Alert 2 Yuri's Revenge, and this being a quote towards when a floating disc is made in Red Alert 2 Yuri's Revenge. Oh gosh, I just coming up against those things is a nightmare because they can attack any kind of target, and when a submarine is unsubmerged, it can attack those as well. So it doesn't matter what kind of form you're in, the floating disc will attack them. And if you have like an oil refinery, it just saps away your money. If you have a power plant, it saps away all of your power from like whatever amount it was to 0, which is a little bit OP. One way to probably kind of reduce its power is just by removing the power of that particular plant rather than like every single plant. Still would be OP though on a Soviet nuclear reactor though. 2000 power just removed. Round 75 gone down and dusted. Round 76 just completely removed like that. The power of the Spectra is undeniable. And it is one of those towers which you can do really easily for a 2 megapop scenario. Like you could do this on some of the most difficult maps, as long as you get your setup correct and you actually purchase the Spectra. Because in a lot of cases, it's not the tower itself that's difficult, it's getting to that tower that's very difficult. So when I originally had a lot of difficulty with, let's say, getting the Ray of Doom 2 megapops, my misunderstanding of how the beam works was my main detriment towards my ability to be able to get that particular 2 megapops, which a lot of you around who has been here for a long time would be able to remember that kind of scenario. Okay, here we go. The signal flare's not able to decamify all the camos in this crater, so you have to move it, and then obviously it finished the job of its decamification process. That's your only purpose. This upgrade is your only purpose, Mortar, but also for starting the game as well. I honestly think that Ancient Portal is the easiest advanced map on Balloons Tower Defense 6, especially with the different tiles in the field where you can either make it so that your hero can pop any kind of balloon by having it on the radar scanner and the MIB tile, or have it more power on the, and also more range on the tile that gives some more range and like +1 power. Or there's also the level up faster tile, which only Brickle and Pat can naturally spawn on. Like with the other heroes, you have to utilize a middle path ice tower, or have a I forgot what it's called now, but that power that enables a land tower to be able to spawn on water with the platoon. I've actually forgotten really what it's called because I don't really play on non-CHIMPS scenarios unless it's a boss event. What's really fascinating about space is that we know more about space than we do about the bottom of our oceans. Who knows what is dwelling within the bottom of our oceans in which we barely know anything about, besides the fact that if we ever were to spawn down there, we would be instantaneously crushed. Like, the weight of water is something that you cannot underestimate. The amount of weight that is within water, the further down you go, is just absolutely intense, where you probably wouldn't even feel it because you would just be instantaneously crushed. Any of us, like if we were to ever spawn several thousands of feet down into the water, would just be instantaneously crushed by the sheer weight of it before we would actually like have to worry about drowning inside of it. I know it's very morbid, but it's kind of like the same thing. Like if you ever were to spawn in space, nobody would hear you and you would only last for a few seconds because of the fact that there was no oxygen in the void of space. Sometimes these hiatus can be a little bit of a struggle for the Spectre because we have to move around its centered path a little bit because of our higher rate of fire. That's not something which we need to worry about. But obviously with the middle path, it does bonus damage to camo balloons, so that is something that you would probably need to consider in certain kinds of runs with the bonus damage against camo balloons, so therefore you wouldn't want something that removes the camo property of the balloons if you rely on that bonus damage, but obviously in this case we're not going to be doing so. And we are 2 rounds away from where the Spectre becomes useless, so we need Flying Fortress. Imagine if Ninja Kiwi took away the normal damage type from the bombs for the Flying Fortress. Oh my goodness sakes, that would be horrendous. You would need another kind of really high damaging tower that can actually pop DDTs in order to help your Flying Fortress along. Imagine a 92,000 upgrade, or 91.8k upgrade, not being able to pop black balloons. Like it's the example of Pop Siding nowadays. A near 60k upgrade, but it's not able to pop a white balloon. Like, what kind of nerf is that? This is 94, and they're not even making it to the first crater. And the amount of pierce that the signal flare is undergoing here is not enough to be able to exceed to it. Like, obviously, we're seeing yellow balloons in here, which is just a sign that Ninja Kiwi really is looking to defeat me with a yellow balloon. Round 96, very, very simple. So space is just always such a fascinating thing, because we are in space in our own ways. Where are we, though, within the grand scheme of the entire universe? Like, space is just so incomprehensibly big, and it's just such a fascinating thing, because, like I said earlier, we know more about space than we do about the bottom of our oceans, and there's still so much more out there. Now, there is like an observable amount of distance in which the entire universe encompasses, but the key word there is observable distance. Doesn't mean total distance, it's just the observable distance in which we have been able to calculate so far as to how big the universe is. Also, this is a 2 megapop scenario as well, but of course, again, it's not official because we started on an earlier, at a later point. Imagine starting as an earlier point. That would be kind of OP, wouldn't it, if you were to start an earlier point? But then again, would it actually change any combinations if you were to start on round 1? Like, obviously you get more money over time. I don't know, really. Could you actually do a Tower Chimps scenario where you start on round 1? Like, make certain combinations possible? I highly doubt so, honestly. So that is a very easy scenario with only 1 or 2 rounds causing a few hiccups, like with round 49 probably being the only kind of blocker here because it was before we got the Spectra upgrade. In the future, I would like to do a very detailed video explain like the different strengths and weaknesses of each tower within a 2-tower chimp scenario. But obviously there would be some which would have very little information because it's just such little records. So let's say Plasma Monkey Fan Club. It's only really possible with the Wizard Lord Phoenix. Is it possible with any other towers? Like, I don't think it would. I think Super Monkey Fan Club and Flying Fortress. This will obviously be too expensive with Flying Fortress. Yeah, the Plasma Monkey Fan Club only has 5 entries in the index. And they're all done by the same person as well. Ultra Juggernaut and Crossbow Master being the more viable paths. Map Domination being the least viable because number 1 is the most expensive and number 2 it's not the best against ceramics. Bomb towers in general are pretty unreliable, especially Marble Innovator losing its normal damage type on its default attack. That's not really cool. Done well with Super Maelstrom recently. I still think the Attack Zone is just worse though overall, just because it doesn't have that ability to really save the other tower's weaknesses. Inferno Ring being the strongest, obviously. Ice towers are really interesting, but obviously you have that white balloon problem. Glue Gunners, the only really viable one nowadays is Glue Storm. Like, it's the weakest DPS, but it's honestly the only one we should really pair up with other towers. Snipers being very weak. Submarines being quite strong, honestly. Buccaneers being very strong. Carrier Flagship losing its normal damage type though is a bit of a nerf. Pirate Lord keeps going up and down. Recently going up again. Planes, I'm not a huge fan of planes, to be honest. Helicopters, each 3 of these parts have their own strengths and weaknesses in their own ways. Biggest one impossible for 2 TCs unless it's on a custom scenario, so let's say paired with a Spike Factory. Popping on Balloon Incineration being the ones in which you want to go out for. Obviously with Popping on you need a decamo property thing going on. Each of these being very viable, obviously only those 2 being able to pop lead balloons. Each of these, like, this is one of the strongest towers. Like, Wizards are an incredibly strong tower. Obviously you need something to pop purple balloons with. Unless of course you're going with Prince of Darkness, but then you need something to pop the badge with. Can you really go up to... There's been a Sun Temple 2TC recently with Prince of Darkness. I just can't make round 97 work. And then obviously Anti-Balloon and Dark Champion being very strong. Master Bomber, like, on paper it looks really strong, but obviously each of these paths have their own weaknesses, just like with any other one. So Grandmaster Ninja can't pop lead balloons. Used to be able to do a 2TC with Permabrew back in like in version 9, a very long time ago. Master Bomber's default attack speed being nerfed is a big boon on it, and also the damage it does decrease is not very good. Permabrew really poor throughout. Like, only few records with Total Transformation and Balloon Master Alchemist. On paper, really cool. Like, Avatar of Wrath doing most amount of damage, but having the fewest records just indicates it's not really good when it comes to 2TCs, honestly. Really strong. Like, Lord of the Abyss is probably the strongest now. Pop Siding used to be the strongest, but now it's borderline useless. Final Harmonic only really being effective with Glaive Lord, and could be effective with the Balloon Solver if the Balloon Solver's globs were able to affect camo balloons. Obviously farm's not available in Chimps. Carpet Spikes and Perma Spike being the most viable paths. Like, there's only very few scenarios with spiked mines. Prime Expertise and Homeland Defense you could make work, really. Oh my god, engineers. These two crossbows are very strong. One for power, one for support. Traps obviously not having a huge amount of records to show. Only can go up to tier 4 with beast handlers. And that's it really. I think there are a lot of strengths and weaknesses with a lot of towers throughout the game. But obviously some base towers are just borderline useless. Bomb shooters, borderline useless. Glue gunners, borderline useless. Like each of them, like snipers are probably the worst ones, honestly, just start out with, and also just to have in general. Alchemist, probably the worst of the magic monkeys, and obviously banana farm can't get. Beast handlers used to be better back in the day. Monkey village is very situational. Thank you all so much for watching, everybody. Sorry for the long outro, but it is what it is. And when are we going to do base Mortar 2 Maker Pops? In the future. We will do it, obviously. Probably next Saturday as of the time of this recording. Thank you all so much for watching, and it may not actually be a successful run, but I'm going to give it my damn most hardest attempt. Thank you all so much for watching, and take care of yourselves, everyone.